during this run to the finals. This is the first trip back since 2019. They don't lose at home, and in series clinching games, pretty good, 22-10. So, of course, they have their hands full with the Boston Celtics, who are led by Defensive Player of the Year Marcus Smart, Steve Kerr on the C's, and Smart.
Marcus, I described him yesterday as kind of the guard version of Draymond. You know, he's just all over the place defensively, really, really smart, anticipates plays, understands angles, the versatility to guard 1 through 5. It's all there.
His number one attribute or positive on him coming out of the draft was his leadership, and that he's a winner and a true point guard. And the qualities that he has, especially on that side of the ball, are those of a leader. I think he's continued to grow into his leadership.
Do you consider yourself an old head now, and what does that feel like or look like to you?
It is weird. You think about like the age range of guys on this team that are out there and playing. You got 19, 20-year-olds, 34, Draymond's 33, whatever it is, and like you got, life is just different. You appreciate the ability to influence those guys at the time that they're in right now, because that will set them up for success.
What I like is it's two teams that were mostly built with patience and through the draft and player development and continuity, and I think that's good for the sport.
Back in here in Studio B with Greg Anthony, this Warriors franchise, the 12th time the franchise has made it to the finals, only trailing the Lakers and the Celtics all time. And, I mean, when the books are finally written, you can't write it without the Golden State Warriors and what they've done, especially in the past 8 seasons.
Yeah, this is the modern-day version of what a dynasty looks like, right? You know, they don't overwhelm you physically, but they just play the game. The artistry of the game is on full display with how this Warriors team operates. To see them get back to the mountaintop with an opportunity to add to an already illustrious career is pretty special. And I know it's not lost on many in the Bay Area and the Warrior fans all over the country. So to have the run they've been on and then go up against arguably the most storied franchise in league history, the Boston Celtics, I don't know that you could write a better storyline than what we have upcoming.
Look at Steph Curry. Obviously, we know that he is special. He has, 47 career playoff games, scoring 30 or more, 128 games hitting at least 1 3 in the playoffs. He's clearly special, arguably the greatest shooter. Not arguably the greatest shooter. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Obviously, what makes him so special, especially on stages like this?
Well, what's unique about him is that the thing that we identify most with him, his shooting ability, is probably not his greatest strength. His greatest ability is the ability to play without the basketball and how he's out there playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. Even on this play, all that misdirection action on the weak side is just to shift the defense to create that backdoor cut right there where there's no weak side help. And he just does a great job of just understanding the flow of a play. And you see how he relocates here, and then Draymond just comes over and look, there's nobody up to help on the greatest shooter ever, and he just steps right into that triple. And again here, forces the defense to adjust, and now they're in rotation. And then this is that location ability that is so difficult to guard for anybody. Again, Draymond just with a rub screen there to free him up for that triple on that weak side. And again, it's just a lot of the same scenario in terms of his ability to pick the picker there, come off, catch and shoot, and all that stuff is phenomenal. But the ability for him to ultimately be the shot maker that he is, that's what really strikes fear into opposing teams. I mean, even though he doesn't look it, he is a really intimidating player to go up against because of how lethal he is, and not just shooting the basketball, but playing without it.
Speaking of intimidated players, we talk about the other Splash brother, Klay Thompson, who appears to have his swagger back. You can see him looking good, feeling good outside of the huddle, but then when he's on the floor, his play is really contributing to having so much success.
Yeah, and credit the team as well with their patience, because it's been a bumpy road. It hasn't always been as fluid as he or they would like, but they continue to maintain confidence and belief. And boy, has he been rewarding him with some of the big clutch games. You think about the closeout games they've had this postseason thus far. you could argue he's been the best player in those games, and that's vital for them. And he also understands playing with the likes of Steph and Draymond, the opportunities are going to be abundant for him. He's going to have a chance to put his stamp on this series. It's just a matter of whether or not he's going to be in the right kind of rhythm. And then also from a defensive standpoint, is he going to be able to hold up on that end? Because he's going to be challenged, there's no doubt about it, by the Celtics.
Well, you can mention Steph and you can mention Clay, but you can't mention those two without mentioning Dre. Draymond Green, we know how special he is. You know, the stats say one thing, but they can't really quantify the importance that he has to this Golden State team.
Yeah, in some respects, he's like a modern-day Bill Russell, right? Because his impact on the game really has never been about his ability to score. It's his leadership, the intangibles he brings there, his defensive intensity, and then his IQ. I mean, those things just are in an abundance when you talk about Draymond Green, and that's why you can't always look at stats. Because if you just went and looked at Draymond Green's stats, you would not think that he's an impactful player, right? But when you watch the game and you see all the things that he does for oftentimes which there is no stat, and the appreciation that his team has for him, and the bottom line is they just win. And he plays an integral part in all of their success on both sides of the ball.
Speaking of stats, just to throw this one out there, the Warriors this postseason are 6-2 when he scores in double figures. So huge impact they're scoring. But the impact that Steve Kerr has, coming from that Bulls dynasty in the late 90s, playing with the Spurs, now coaching the Golden State Warriors. Just talk about his career and the chance of more history that he has to make in this finals.
Yeah, Steve Kerr is the ultimate winner, an incredible teammate. Person, and then obviously a terrific coach, because, you know, oftentimes it's the ability to get a group over the hump. They had some success in the postseason prior to him being signed as the head coach, and I remember having a conversation with him when they were just getting ready to start that first journey, his first season, and asking him, you know, what things are you going to do differently than the predecessor in Mark Jackson? And he said, you know, one thing I want to really focus on is taking the ball out of Steph's hands, which was kind of counterintuitive. You know, one of the best point guards already, showing his greatness. But that singular move, I think, is really what catapulted this team into a whole new level. The fact that he could understand by doing that, and then having the pieces like a Draymond, like a Clay, and the great veteran core that they had throughout this tenure, to see them do what they did, and then now to run it back 2 years later after all the injuries, the adversity, and all this new core group they have, these young guys that are figuring it out on the fly. It's been special to watch, and you got to tip your cap to Steve Kerr and the job he's done. Bob Myers as well in the front office. Like, they've done it the right way. And think about it. We're not even talking about the guy that was drafted number 2 a couple years ago, hadn't played all season long. He's still in the fold. And he may be getting ready for next season. Boy, that could be scary if he's able to become a productive young player for the Warriors.
James Wiseman, hope to see him back healthy next season. I mean, just to say this, 21-2 since 2015. That's what the Golden State Warriors are in Game 1 in any playoffs or finals. That's pretty impressive.
That's impressive.
Impressive indeed. Well, listen, the C's are impressive.